Ancient Egypt, a gay romance, full of desire. Under the blazing sun of ancient Thebes, where gods ruled the heavens and pharaohs commanded absolute power, I lived a life of discipline, silence, and hidden longing. I was a royal scribe, trusted, obedient, and unnoticed. And he was a warrior, a guardian of the temple, fearless, untouchable, forbidden. I never meant to fall for him, not in a world like ours, not in a time where love between two men had to live in shadows. But the first time I saw him, standing tall beneath the pillars of Ra's temple, golden skin gleaming with sweat, something inside me broke free. Before I tell you the rest, the stolen glances, the night that changed everything, the risk that almost cost us everything, make sure you subscribe, like this video, and turn on notifications. This isn't just a story of passion. It's about fate, fear, and the kind of love that defies the laws of kings and gods alike. Let me take you back to the land of sand and secrets, to the very moment when everything began. The heat in Thebes that morning was relentless. Even in the early hours, the sun bled across the stone courtyards like molten gold. I had arrived at the temple before dawn, as I did every day. My reed pens were sharpened, my scrolls arranged, and the scent of ink still clung to my fingers. It was supposed to be a normal day. Quiet, predictable. Just another chapter written in silence. But then he walked in. He didn't belong to my world. He wasn't robed in white linen like the priests, nor bowed with the weight of scrolls like I was. He wore armor, not the kind of the battlefield, but ceremonial. Golden chestplate over dark skin, a blade resting against his hip, his bare shoulders glistening with sweat. He paused at the edge of the courtyard, his presence demanding attention even before he spoke. Every scribe, every servant stilled. Even the priests looked up. I should have lowered my gaze. That's what we were taught. That's what I always did. But I didn't. Our eyes met. Just for a second. Just long enough for something inside me to unravel. He was younger than I expected, maybe only a few years older than me, but he held himself like someone who had seen things. His eyes, dark as obsidian, didn't just look. They searched, like he was trying to find something buried inside me. I swallowed hard and looked down, suddenly aware of how dry my throat was. "Who is that?" I whispered to the scribe beside me. "General Kemet's son," he answered under his breath. "Name's Seth. He's been assigned to the pharaoh's inner guard." Of course he has, I thought. A warrior like him wasn't made to be hidden. I tried to return to my work, to focus on the scroll in front of me. But the image of him lingered like the scent of burning incense. Every brush of the reed pen against parchment felt slower, every breath tighter. Hours passed. The day dragged on under the weight of the sun, and yet, somehow, he was always near. I saw him again by the reflecting pool speaking with a high priest. Later, in the training courtyard, his muscles flexing as he moved through sword drills, elegant and brutal at once. He never looked at me again. Or so I thought. That night, long after the temple had closed to commoners and the sacred fires dimmed, I stayed behind to finish copying a scroll. My lamp flickered in the stillness. The world outside had gone quiet. Only the soft hum of the desert wind through the columns remained. I didn't hear him enter. "You write beautifully," he said. I jumped, nearly knocking over the ink jar. My heart punched against my ribs as I turned to find him standing in the shadows just beyond the torchlight. "Seth," I said before I could stop myself. A smile curved at the edge of his lips. "So you do know my name?" Yes. I mean, everyone knows." My words tangled, stupid and awkward. He stepped closer. The golden details of his armor caught the firelight, casting faint reflections on the walls around us. "You're the scribe they talk about," he said. "The quiet one, the one who never looks up." "I looked up today." He stopped, only a few steps away now. "I noticed." We stood there, facing each other. Silence stretched between us, heavy and charged. "I didn't think warriors paid attention to scribes," I said, my voice barely more than a breath. "I don't." His gaze locked with mine. "Only you." My heart was in my throat. The space between us was too small now, too electric. I could smell him. Sweat, leather, a trace of myrrh oil. Every part of me buzzed. "I should go," I whispered. "Do you want to?" he asked. And I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. Because I'd never been looked at like this before. Because I'd never wanted to stay so badly. And then, from the far end of the corridor, a voice called out, "Seth!" He stepped back instantly, eyes flashing toward the sound. "I have to return," he said quickly, "but we'll talk again." I watched him disappear into the shadows, the silence rushing in behind him like a closing door. I was left alone, breathless, ink-stained fingers trembling, and for the first time in my life, I was afraid of what I wanted. The next morning, I woke earlier than usual. My sleep had been shallow, broken by flashes of memory. His voice, the way he looked at me under the torchlight, the scent of oil and dust that clung to his skin. It felt like a dream I wasn't ready to wake from. But it happened. I knew it did. I arrived at the temple courtyard before the sun had climbed above the horizon. The coolness of dawn still clung to the stone, and the first golden streaks of light spilled in through the tall columns like blessings from the gods. I set out my scrolls and inks, trying to calm my nerves by falling back into routine, but nothing about me felt routine anymore. I kept glancing toward the archway, toward the path where the guards would pass for inspection. I told myself I wasn't looking for him, that I was focused on work. I was lying to myself. When I saw him again, my body knew before my eyes confirmed it. A slow heat spread through my chest as he entered the courtyard in full armor, head held high. He moved like a panther, every step deliberate, effortless. And then, just before he passed the altar of Ra, he turned his head and looked directly at me. It wasn't casual. It wasn't accidental. It was deliberate. I held his gaze for as long as I dared before forcing myself to look away. My hands trembled as I dipped my reed pen into ink and pressed it against the papyrus. I couldn't even read the words I was writing. That afternoon, I was summoned by the high priest to deliver a translated scroll to the palace library. I had never been inside the royal wing before. My stomach twisted with nerves as I stepped into the long corridor, flanked by tall, lotus-painted columns and guarded by soldiers in gold-trimmed linen. And there he was again. Seth stood near one of the doors, speaking with another guard. His back was turned to me, but something in me shifted just at the sight of him. I walked quickly, hoping to pass without being noticed. But as I reached the corridor's end, I heard his voice. "Scribe." I stopped. I turned around slowly, already knowing what I'd find. He was walking toward me, his expression unreadable, but his eyes locked on mine. "I wasn't sure you'd come back," he said. "I was summoned," I replied. My voice came out thinner than I wanted. He nodded, stepping closer. "And if you hadn't been?" I didn't answer. Because the truth was, I didn't know. I hadn't made any decisions yet, only questions. "You've been in my mind since last night," he said softly. "I thought maybe I imagined it all." "You didn't." He took another step. Now we were hidden between two towering columns. The guards at the far end were distracted, laughing over something unseen. For a moment, we were invisible again. "I haven't done this before," I said. "Neither have I," he replied. I looked at him, searching for doubt, for hesitation, but all I saw was want, careful, dangerous, but real. "If someone sees us, they won't," he cut in gently. "Not if we're careful." His hand brushed against mine, just once, and yet it was enough to make my knees weaken. "I can't stop thinking about you," he whispered. "I don't even know you," I whispered back. "Then let me fix that." Footsteps echoed down the hall, fast and purposeful. Seth stepped away immediately, standing straight, the mask of the soldier returning in an instant. A robed priest passed between us, glancing curiously but saying nothing. After the priest disappeared, I turned to Seth again, heart pounding in my throat. He gave me a look, one that said not here. Then, under his breath, he said, "Meet me by the garden wall tonight, after moonrise." I didn't nod. I didn't speak. But he knew. He turned and walked away. And I stood there, scroll clutched tightly in my arms, knowing something irreversible had begun. Something neither of us could stop now. The moon rose like a silver god over Thebes that night. Its glow stretched across the temple rooftops and shimmered on the surface of the Nile like a secret waiting to be confessed. I wrapped myself in a plain linen robe and slipped out quietly, the silence of the palace echoing behind me. Every step I took toward the garden wall made my chest tighten with anticipation and fear. What was I doing? What was he doing? The temple gardens were vast, sacred, lined with tall papyrus, palms, and statues of Anubis and Horus that watched in silence. I knew exactly where to go. The eastern wall, just beyond the incense trees, where the guards rarely patrolled and the shadows ran deep. He was already there. Seth stood with his back against the sandstone wall, arms crossed, moonlight catching the edge of his jaw. He looked up the moment I stepped out of the trees. His expression shifted, relief first, then something warmer, something more dangerous. "You came," he said softly. "I shouldn't have," I replied. "But I did." He didn't move at first. Neither did I. We just stood there, letting the silence fill with things neither of us knew how to say yet. Then he took a step forward, slowly, like he was approaching something fragile. And maybe he was. "I don't know what this is," he said, voice low. "I only know I can't stop thinking about you." I felt it too, this invisible pull between us, the way the world seemed to fall quiet when we were near each other, like even the gods were holding their breath. "I've spent my whole life avoiding attention," I whispered, "staying invisible. And now I'm here, standing in front of you, completely seen. And it terrifies me." He nodded. "Me too." Then, almost cautiously, he reached out and touched my hand. Not grabbed, not held, just touched. The warmth of his skin against mine sent a jolt through me, gentle and electric at once. "I don't want to hide from this," he said, "but I also don't know how to live in it." "We're not allowed to want this," I said. "But we do," he replied, eyes burning into mine. I didn't answer. I couldn't, because every part of me already had. He moved closer. His forehead touched mine. Our breaths mixed. And then, finally, his lips brushed against mine. Tentative at first, like a question. I answered him by kissing him back. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't wild. It was slow, careful, filled with the fear of being caught and the relief of finally letting go. My hands rested against his chest, His fingers slid behind my neck. The scent of him, sandalwood, sweat, and warm desert wind, flooded my senses. For a moment, I forgot where we were. I forgot the temple, the rules, the walls closing in. There was only his mouth, his breath, his touch. When we pulled apart, I felt dizzy. Not from the kiss, from the way he looked at me, like I mattered. "Will you come back here tomorrow night?" he asked, barely above a whisper. I nodded. "Yes." He smiled. Small, real. The kind of smile you only give to someone you don't have to pretend around. We stood together in silence until the sound of distant voices made us both tense. Seth stepped back quickly, scanning the shadows. "Go," he said, "before anyone sees." I wanted to stay. I wanted to freeze this moment and live inside it. But I nodded, stepping back into the garden's trees. Just as I turned to leave, he called out softly, "Eli." I looked back. He hesitated, then said, "Be careful. Some eyes see more than they should." I didn't know what he meant, but I felt the weight of it settle over me like sand. I returned to my quarters, my mouth still tasting of him, my heart trying to understand what had just begun, and on the table by my bed was a folded scrap of papyrus. My name was written on the outside. Inside, just one sentence. "He is not yours to love." The papyrus stayed in my hand for a long time, even after I'd read it. Over and over, my eyes traced the same words. "He is not yours to love." No seal, no signature. Just my name on the outside, and that warning inside. I looked around my small room, suddenly suspicious of every corner. Had someone been here? Was someone watching last night? The scribe's quarters were usually quiet, private. But nothing felt private anymore. Not after that kiss. Not after him. The next morning I was assigned to copy prayers in the Hall of Horus, a massive, echoing chamber filled with towering pillars and sunlight filtered through stone-carved gods. Normally, it calmed me, gave me focus. But today my hands shook as I wrote. I was no longer invisible. Someone had seen us, and now they wanted to remind me of the world I lived in, a world of rules, silence, obedience. I barely noticed when he entered, but I felt him. Seth passed the outer edge of the hall, flanked by 2 other guards. He didn't look at me directly, but his posture shifted when he reached the center. He slowed just slightly. It was his way of letting me know he saw me, that I was still on his mind. And yet, the note in my pocket burned. That night, I didn't go to the garden. I waited in my room, torn between fear and desire, guilt and longing. I imagined him standing there beneath the moon again, watching the trees for movement, wondering why I hadn't come. But I couldn't. Not after that warning. Not when I didn't know how much danger we were really in. The next day I saw him again. This time in the palace corridor, alone. He spotted me from across the hall and broke away from the others, walking toward me without hesitation. "We need to talk," he said quietly. "Seth, this isn't—" "Not here. Follow me." I didn't argue. I followed. He led me through a side passage I didn't recognize, deeper into the heart of the palace, until we reached a small chamber, private, dark, lit only by a single oil lamp. When he closed the door behind us, the sound felt final, like a door shutting on the rest of the world. He turned to face me, his eyes searching mine. "You weren't there last night," he said. I couldn't. "Why?" I pulled the folded papyrus from my robe and handed it to him. He read it, his jaw clenched. "Do you recognize the handwriting?" I asked. He shook his head. No, but I have enemies. People who would want to keep me distracted. Is that what I am? I asked softly. A distraction? His eyes met mine, full of heat and hurt. You're the only thing in my life that doesn't feel like a duty. That made my breath hitch, because I understood. That was what this had become for me, too. Not just desire, not just curiosity, but something that made me feel real again. Alive. I'm scared, I admitted. So am I, he said. But I'd rather feel that fear with you than live another day pretending I don't care. He stepped closer and I let him. Our foreheads touched again, just like that night. The lamp flickered. The shadows danced across his skin. Promise me something, he whispered. What? If anything happens, if someone comes after you, tell me. Don't keep it to yourself. I nodded, and then we kissed again. Longer this time. Deeper. Not just heat, but something tender buried underneath. My hands moved up his chest, over his shoulders. I wanted to remember what it felt like to be this close, in case I never got the chance again. A sharp knock shattered everything. We jumped apart. Seth turned toward the door, voice low but steady. Yes? A voice answered from the hallway, cold, formal. The high priest has requested the presence of the scribe Eli. Immediately. My blood froze. They knew my name. Seth opened the door. A temple guard stood there, not one of his men. I looked at Seth, panicked. His jaw tightened. I'll handle it. No, I said, swallowing the lump in my throat. I have to go. He grabbed my hand, squeezed it hard. Whatever happens, don't say anything. I nodded once, and then I followed the guard into the darkness of the corridor, not knowing what awaited me at the end of it. The chamber of the high priest was colder than I expected, silent, heavy with incense and judgment. He didn't ask why I was there. He already knew. He asked only one question. Has the soldier touched you? I didn't speak. Couldn't. The silence stretched, and the weight of it almost broke me. I have seen the signs, he continued. The glances, the lateness, the unrest. I thought of Seth, of the garden, of his hands, his eyes, his voice asking me to be careful. And still, I said nothing. The high priest leaned forward. You will end this. Or I will. Then he dismissed me. When I stepped out into the sunlight again, I could barely breathe. Seth was waiting for me behind the stone pillars, hidden from view. One look at my face and he knew. They're watching us now, I said. All the time. He didn't speak. He just nodded, jaw clenched. We have to stop, I whispered, before they destroy you. His eyes filled with something deep, pain, defiance, maybe love. I would rather be destroyed, he said, than forget what it feels like to want you. I didn't answer, because I didn't know if I could survive wanting him too. We didn't meet again in the garden, not openly, but somehow we still found each other. Glances in passing, quiet touches when no one watched, messages slipped between scrolls, a life built between seconds. They never caught us, but we knew they could, and yet we kept choosing each other. Years later, after Seth was reassigned far from Thebes, and I had risen quietly within the scribe's ranks, I still kept one thing hidden inside my robe, a gold thread from his armor, the last thing he gave me before he left. we never spoke of love aloud. But in the shadows of a kingdom ruled by gods and fear, we found it anyway. And sometimes, that's enough. If this story touched something inside you, ask yourself, what are you hiding from? Who would you be if you stopped running from what your heart really wants? Love doesn't always shout. Sometimes it lives in the quiet, in a glance, in a risk, in a decision no one else understands. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to discover more stories like this. Stories that speak to the heart, even in the silence. Because love, no matter the time or place, always finds a way.